My boyfriend's ultimatum was as cold and precise as a surgeon's knife. Prove my undying love by signing over half my inheritance into a joint account for his can't-fail business venture, or he'd release the one video that could unravel the entire carefully constructed tapestry of my life. I stared into his eyes, which I once thought were warm and kind, and saw only the cold calculation of a predator. He gave me 48 hours to decide. It took me all of 48 seconds. I chose the video. The video. Just thinking about it made my palms sweat and my throat tighten. It wasn't a sex tape, nothing so salacious or simple. In a way, that would have been easier to explain. No, this was something far more damning in the world I now inhabited. It was a silent, grainy clip, shot from a high angle, likely from a security camera, showing a much younger me at 18. My face was pale and drawn under the harsh fluorescent lights of a deserted car park. I was wearing a cheap, thin jacket against the chill of a long-ago November night. The most incriminating part was the transaction. A man, his face obscured by the angle and a pulled-down hat, handed me a thick white envelope. My hands, trembling visibly even on the poor-quality video, reached for it. I clutched it to my chest like a lifeline. The audio, surprisingly clear, was the nail in the coffin. My voice, young and shaking with a mixture of fear and desperate hope, said, "Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. This will cover the first year. I don't know how I can ever repay you." A low, smooth voice belonging to the man replied, "Consider it an investment in your future, Lily. Everyone has a price. I've simply found yours." Caleb, my boyfriend of 2 seemingly perfect years, had discovered this digital ghost while we were engaged in a sickeningly domestic task, sorting through old boxes in my parents' attic for a nostalgic scrapbook. The hard drive was tucked away in a case of university textbooks I'd kept for sentimental reasons. I'd forgotten it even existed. He'd said nothing at the time. He was a strategist, my Caleb. He waited. He waited until I'd fallen completely in love with him, until I'd convinced him to move out of his cramped studio and into the spacious, airy flat I owned outright. A flat I'd bought with the sweat and sacrifice of a decade in a high-stress tech job. He waited until my guard was down, until I felt safe and secure in the life I had built from the ashes of my past. The night he sprung his trap, we were on the balcony of that very flat, sharing a bottle of expensive red wine he'd brought home. The city lights twinkled below, a panorama of dreams we were supposed to be building together. He smiled, that same boyish, disarming smile that had first caught my eye. "Lily," he began, his tone light, "I think it's time we made things more permanent. Solidified our partnership." I thought my signing the lease renewal with both our names was pretty permanent, I joked, nudging him playfully. "I mean financially permanent," he clarified, his smile not reaching his eyes. "My new startup, Aura. It's a sure thing. The investors are circling. But I need a significant capital injection to get the prototype to the next level. And you, my love, have that trust fund from your grandmother. It's just sitting there, gathering dust." A cold knot tightened in my stomach. "Caleb, we've talked about this. That money is my final safety net. It's from my grandmother, yes, but it's also my peace of mind. After everything, I can't just pour it into a risky venture. Not even yours." His smile tightened, becoming a thin, sharp line. "I think you'll want to reconsider. Your current circumstances have changed." And then he pulled out his phone. The familiar, grainy video started to play on the bright screen. I felt the world tilt. The wine turned to acid in my stomach. The city lights blurred into a nauseating swirl. "Where did you get that?" I whispered, my voice a hollow echo of the terrified girl in the recording. "The where is irrelevant," he said, his voice chillingly calm. "The what is what matters. Imagine this video landing in the inbox of your CEO, Sarah Jenkins, or the head of the ethics committee at Ether Solutions, a company that prides itself on its unimpeachable integrity for handling sensitive government data contracts. How long do you think you'd last? They'd terminate you for gross misconduct. So fast security wouldn't even have time to escort you out. You'd be blacklisted. Unemployable in this industry. That safety net of yours? It'd be gone before you could even scream. It was a private transaction. I cried, desperation clawing at me. I was 18. My parents were gone. I was desperate. It was for my sister's tuition. It doesn't look private, Lily, he countered smoothly. It looks like a clandestine payoff. Looks like you have a history of being financially compromised. In my world, that's a vulnerability. In your company's world, that's a catastrophic liability. He paused, letting the venom sink in. But if we're true partners, if that money becomes our money invested in our future, then this little video stays right here. With me. It becomes our secret. You have 48 hours to transfer half of the trust fund, pound 150,000, into our joint account. Once I see the cleared funds, I delete the file. Forever. We can forget this ever happened. You're blackmailing me, I breathed, the word tasting like ash. I'm incentivizing you to see reason, he corrected, his tone patronizing. I'm protecting our future from your indiscretions. He finished his wine, placed the glass neatly on the table, and went inside to bed as if he'd just discussed what to have for dinner. I remained on the balcony, frozen. The cold night air seeped into my bones. The memory of that time flooded back. The crushing grief of losing my parents in the car crash, the overwhelming medical debt, the desperation of seeing my younger sister, Sophie, facing a future without the surgery she needed to walk again. Mr. Blackwood had been a shadowy contact of a friend, a man who solved problems for a price. The money he gave me that night had saved Sophie. It was the hardest, most painful decision of my life, and I had buried it deep, using the inheritance from my grandmother years later to finally feel secure. Now Caleb wanted to take that security away, using the very act that had saved my family as a weapon to destroy me. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, a transformation occurred. The paralyzing fear began to harden into a core of solid, unyielding anger. I was not that frightened 18-year-old girl anymore. I was Lily Evans, a woman who had fought tooth and nail for her career, her home, and her independence. I had survived worse than Caleb. I didn't wait 48 hours. I acted. The moment the clock struck 9 a.m., I called my office and feigned a migraine. Then, with trembling but determined hands, I called my sister, Sophie. I told her everything. The truth about Mr. Blackwood's money, the video, Caleb's threat. There was a long silence on the other end, followed not by tears, but by a low, furious growl. That spineless, manipulative bastard, she seethed. After all you did for me. He's not going to get away with this, Lily. We fight. Her fury was the fuel I needed. Next, I scrolled through my contacts and found Ben Carter, a sharp, ruthless lawyer I'd known since university. He'd made a name for himself in high-stakes corporate and blackmail cases. I went to his sleek, modern office in the city center and played him the video from Caleb's phone, which I'd secretly recorded on my own device during his little balcony performance. I laid out the entire sordid story. Ben steepled his fingers. This is extortion. Plain and simple. Do not, under any circumstances, transfer that money. That would be seen as compliance. Our first step is evidence. You need to record every single interaction with him from now on. Save every text, every email. We will bury him with a restraining order and a civil suit that will make his head spin. But Lily, he leaned forward, his expression grave, you need to be prepared. If we go nuclear, this video will likely become public. The legal process is a messy beast. Are you ready for that? I took a deep breath. The old Lily would have crumbled at the thought. The new Lily met his gaze. If it's going to come out, Ben, I want it to be because I'm fighting back. Not because I'm being victimized. I'd rather be known as the woman who survived a blackmail attempt than the woman who was destroyed by one. I left his office with a miniature digital recorder in my pocket, feeling like a spy in my own life. The next confrontation with Caleb was even uglier than the first. He was waiting for me in the living room, expecting a cowed and compliant girlfriend. "Well?" he asked, a smug smile playing on his lips. "Have you seen reason?" I activated the recorder. "I'm not giving you the money, Caleb." The smile vanished, replaced by a mask of pure rage. His face contorted. "You stupid, ungrateful bitch," he snarled, his voice losing all its cultivated charm. "You have no idea what I'm capable of. I will destroy you. I'll send this video to TechCrunch, to the Daily Mail, to every single person on your LinkedIn. You think you'll ever work again? You'll be a pariah. You'll lose this flat. You'll be back in the gutter where you belong." The recorder captured every venomous word. "The money from Mr. Blackwood paid for my sister's surgery after our parents were killed," I stated calmly, forcing my voice not to shake. "What's your justification? That your startup is more important than a life?" He let out a harsh, mocking laugh. "You think you're better than me? You were bought and paid for a long time ago, Lily. You've always been a whore, just not the kind that gets cash on the mattress. I'm just the first one smart enough to call in the debt." He stepped menacingly close, his breath hot on my face. "You have until 9 a.m. tomorrow. If that money isn't in the account, your world ends. And just so you know, I'm not bluffing." He pulled out his phone, his fingers flying across the screen. He showed it to me. It was an email addressed directly to my CEO, Sarah Jenkins. The subject line was, Lily Evans' gross ethical breach and security risk. The video file was attached. His thumb hovered dramatically over the send button. "One tap, Lily. That's all it takes to erase you." I looked from his gloating face to the phone and back again. A strange calm settled over me. "Then I guess you should tap it." The shock that registered on his face was almost comical. He had been so sure of my fear. He pressed send. We both watched as the email whooshed away. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs, but I held my ground, my gaze steady. "You've just ended your career," he spat, a vein throbbing in his temple. "No," I said softly, pulling the recorder from my pocket and pressing stop. The tiny red light blinked off. "I think you've just provided the evidence that ends your freedom." The look of sheer, panicked realization that dawned on his face was worth every second of the terror I had endured. He lunged at me, a wild animal cornered, but I sidestepped him, clutching the recorder to my chest. "Get out," I commanded, my voice ringing with an authority I didn't know I possessed. "Get out of my home. Now." He left, screaming obscenities and threats, but the power had irrevocably shifted. I had his crime on tape. He had a video of a tragic, explainable moment from my past. The fallout was swift and surreal. My phone rang less than an hour later. It was Sarah Jenkins's personal number. Her voice was like ice. "Lily. My office. Now." I didn't go alone. I called Ben and we went together. I walked into the boardroom, my knees weak but my head held high. Sarah and 2 other senior directors were there, their faces unreadable. "We received a very disturbing email," Sarah began. "I know," I said. "And I can explain." I placed the digital recorder on the polished mahogany table. "But first, I think you need to hear this." I played the recording of Caleb's blackmail attempt. The room was silent except for his snarling voice. When it finished, there was a long pause. Sarah Jenkins, a woman known for her steely composure, looked furious. But not at me. "This is outrageous," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "This is criminal behavior targeted at one of our most valued employees." She looked directly at me. "Lily, the board's primary concern is the safety and well-being of our team. We judge people by their character and their actions in the present, not by the impossible choices they were forced to make as traumatized young adults. What this man has done is despicable. You have the full weight of the company's legal department behind you." I nearly collapsed with relief. They didn't fire me. Instead, they offered me a paid leave of absence to handle the situation and assigned their top corporate lawyer to assist Ben. The video Caleb had sent, intended as my death warrant, became the key piece of evidence in my lawsuit against him for extortion, harassment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The police were involved and he was arrested. The story did leak, of course. But Ben helped me control the narrative. We went to a journalist I trusted, and she wrote a powerful piece that framed me not as a victim, but as a survivor who had taken a desperate measure to save her family and was now courageously standing up to a sophisticated blackmailer. The public response was overwhelmingly supportive. Messages flooded in from old acquaintances, even from my past life. A life I had kept secret from my corporate persona. One of those messages was from a woman named Lily. We had worked together years ago in a different world. A dimly lit club where we both danced to pay our way through university and beyond. She had gotten out too and had built a successful practice as a doula and a yoga instructor. She understood the art of reinvention better than anyone. "Honey, we're chameleons," she told me over a long, healing lunch. "We do what we have to do to survive. Never ever be ashamed of that. This Caleb guy? He's just a parasite. You're a survivor. Remember that." Through Lily, I was reintroduced to a man named Caleb. A different Caleb. This Caleb was a carpenter, a craftsman with calloused hands and a quiet, steady presence. He was a friend of Lily's and he'd read the article. He didn't see scandal when he looked at me, he saw strength. He saw a woman who had weathered storms. He came over to my flat a week after my ex's arrest, under the pretext of helping me change the locks, a suggestion from Ben. He did more than that. He checked every window, reinforced the doorframe, and then, noticing my empty living room wall, offered to build me a set of floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. "A room doesn't feel like a home without books," he'd said with a shy smile. As he measured and sawed, the solid, tangible act of creating something beautiful and sturdy felt like a metaphor for my own rebuilding. We talked for hours. He was kind, grounded, and had no agenda other than to help a friend of a friend. The legal case against my ex-boyfriend proceeded. He eventually pleaded guilty to avoid a trial, receiving a suspended sentence but a permanent criminal record that effectively ended his career in our city. He disappeared, a ghost banished by the light of truth. In the months that followed, a new rhythm emerged. Lily, Caleb, and I became an inseparable trio. We were the family you choose. Weekends were spent exploring farmers markets, having movie marathons in my flat, and laughing in a way I'd forgotten was possible. The dynamic between the three of us was easy, natural, and slowly, subtly, it deepened. It wasn't just a friendship. I found myself falling in love with both of them, with Lily's fierce, protective spirit and her infectious laugh, and with Caleb's quiet strength and profound kindness. And it seemed they were falling for me and for each other. It was a confusing, beautiful tangle of emotions. One evening, after a bottle of wine, we finally had the conversation. It was awkward and nervous, full of halting sentences and vulnerable admissions. We decided to try. To explore what it meant to be the three of us together. It was unconventional, complicated, and felt more right than anything ever had. Then a new complication arose. I was late. A pregnancy test confirmed it. I was terrified to tell them. Our relationship was so new, so fragile. What if this was too much? What if they felt trapped? I gathered them in my living room, my hands ice cold. "I'm pregnant," I whispered, bracing for the worst. The silence stretched for a heartbeat, then two. Then Lily let out a joyful whoop, her face splitting into a radiant grin. "Oh my God. That's amazing news." She threw her arms around me. Caleb took my hand, his grip warm and firm. His eyes, full of concern and love, searched mine. "Are you okay? However you feel, we're here. We're in this together. All three of us." The tears came then, tears of relief and overwhelming love. They weren't running. They were all in. The pregnancy was a whirlwind of joy and preparation. We decided that Lily and Caleb would officially move in. We started the process of buying the adjacent flat when it came on the market, planning to knock through and create one large loving home for our unconventional family. My sister, Sophie, now fully recovered and thriving, was over the moon, finally understanding the full extent of my past sacrifice and ecstatic about my future happiness. I gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. As I held them in my arms in the hospital room, exhausted and exhilarated, with Lily holding my hand and Caleb stroking the baby's head, I thought of that grainy video. The shame that had clung to me for so long had completely dissolved, replaced by a fierce, unshakable pride. That desperate girl in the car park had done what was necessary to save her family. The woman she became had fought to create a new one, a family built not on desperation but on choice, trust, and a love that was boundless. The past hadn't defined me, it had forged me in fire. And my future with my twins and my two partners shone brighter than any inheritance, any career, or any safety net I could have ever imagined.